Hi, I'm Ana Luisa, and I beat the open path by cleaning the water using just the sun.
Joining us today is Ana Luisa Beserra Santos, the CEO of Sustainable Development and Water for All, a Brazilian organization bringing water and sanitation to people who lack access. And in case you didn't realize, a lot of people around the world lack access, including up to half of all of Brazil who doesn't have access to proper sanitation. Water and sanitation have the power to reduce the number of deaths from waterborne diseases by as much as 65%, and Anna and her startup have already benefited more than 15,000 people in 15 Brazilian states. Anna founded her startup in 2015 at the age of 17, and in 2019 she won the UN Champions of the Earth Award. She was also the youngest Brazilian graduate in leadership for new enterprises from MIT at the age of 18, so she's a pretty special individual. So let's hear from this remarkable woman, Ana Luisa Becerra Santos. So welcome. And your story is fascinating to say the least. You did more before you were 17 years old than I've done in my entire life so far. So you have done incredible things. Would you mind sharing some of the projects that you've been involved with and some of the work that you've been doing?
Yes, so since I was a child, my dream was to become a scientist and do something to change the world. And when I was 15 years old, a lot of things happened and made me realize that I wanted to be scientist and develop something to make clean water a reality for millions of families, starting in Brazil, but eventually going worldwide. And that's when I created my first technology called Aqualuz that cleans the water using just the sun radiation, the sun energy. It's a technology that right now we implement in Brazil in more than 4,000 people use it. After I created Aqualuz, of course, it wasn't that easy. It was a lot of years before we finally could have the technology in the market. And one thing that made this come true was when I was 17 years old and decided to start a startup, be the founder of Sustainable Development and Water for All, with the goal to put Aqualus on the market. But after understanding more about the water reality, the sanitation reality in Brazil and in the rest of the world, I realized that we needed to develop more technologies and to invest more time to understand how big and how important this problem is and how it impacts in the health, in the education, in the economy of the places that lack this kind of, I would say, gold, because water is the real gold.
Water is the real gold. What is the issue? Sanitation, water. Two things that aren't important to anybody. I've got great sanitation, great water, problem solved. I have nothing to worry about. So there's no issue here, right? Everything is fine.
I'm also one of the lucky as you, Ross, because we don't have any kind of problem with water and sanitation. But not that far from me, there are millions of people here in Brazil that doesn't have access to tap water. That sometimes needs to walk miles until they find a water source that is contaminated, and when they deliver this water to their kids, mainly or for themselves, they become sick. They get what we call the water related disease. And with this, there is a lot of more consequences that impact in the rest of the life of these people. So this is a complex problem, I would say. There is a lot of factors that makes this happen and continue to happen right now when some of this family already have a cell phone, already have Wi-Fi in their house, but they don't have access to water or even a toilet in their homes.
So at the age of 15, you had this profound realization. What did you then do to start on tackling what also seems like an impossible problem?
Yeah, well, I didn't have much resources, but I did have access to internet. So I used this in my favor to try to find something as simple as possible that I could do at my house with the help of my father, and I found a methodology that uses the sun to clean the water in usually plastic bottles. So I try to understand as much as possible how this methodology worked, and how I could improve it to implement in Brazil, considering the Brazilian culture also. So the first unit of Aqualus came in 2013 when I was 15, and it wasn't as good as it is right now, but was what I could do using the things that I have in my house and with the help of my father. So for me, it was a really good realization, and every time that I could realize that well, I could improve the technology by doing this, and then I did this improvement, and right now we are already in the version number 14 of Aqualus. So has been
14.
a lot of improvements, and we are still improving the technology.
That's incredible. So tell everybody who's listening or watching how this technology actually works. How many gallons of water can it filter? What does it actually look like?
Yeah, so it's not too big. It's about also in centimeters. It's about 54 centimeters, and it has a very short height, because the secret is you need to expose as maximum as possible the water to the sun radiation. So you need to have a really flat amount of water, so this water will receive as many radiation from the sun as possible. Then the cover is made of glass, so it will make the access to the sun in the water to the sun easier. And what we use for the sun is the UV light. So the UV light has this potential to kill the microorganisms by doing some cellular damage, or the DNA. They will break the stuff around that. Is the same, also the same principle that give us the skin cancer. Is the same thing that we use.
Fun.
Yeah, that's why we need to use sunscreen. But the microorganism doesn't have sunscreen, so they will be dead when they are exposed to the sun. And this make the water safe to drink in the microbiological way. So it's a methodology applied just to treat the water in the microbiological way. It's not every kind of water that we can treat with this technology. And we
Mm.
apply that in places where we have a higher sun exposition. So here in Brazil, we have a very hot climate in most part of the country, and this help us a lot to have um, a high efficiency. Um, the technology will work more in, in the most part of the year. And also something I forgot to say is that it takes some hours. It's not some minutes to treat the water. You need to make the water to live there in exposition to the sun during some hours, and we have a sensor that changes color, and then the user can understand that this water is ready to be taken off and drink, because we don't change anything about the water, how the water looks like.
So what's more important? Because I honestly don't know. What's more important if I get my third Lamborghini, or somebody else, say 5,000 people have access to clean water? Because I don't know. What's more important in your opinion?
Definitely the access to water, because the
But I like Lamborghinis. I like them a lot.
I
They're
guess
very fun.
I guess I will have a lot of difficulties try um, to explain how water and sanitation is really important, because when I started to work in this field, I didn't understand very much. And after I see the numbers, after we understand the data behind, and we see those data really happen in our faces, we could see that water is really much more important than we realize. We could understand how when the family has access to water, the the kids' grades at school become better, and we can see that those kids has a brighter future because of this. We can see the parents that sometimes they need to skip work to take care of the kid because they are sick or because of the water. They need to go to a hospital with a very bad hospital, very far from their house, and that spend money because they don't have cars or motorcycle or Lamborghinis. So it's
Ah,
very expensive for them to go
jeez.
to the hospital and then need to um, buy medicines to treat the kids. And so it's a lot of money that could be reinvested in a lot of other things that are important for them if they just have access to water. So by just giving access to water to them, we can have a lot of different situations for those families.
That's incredible. Humanity is doomed. Is it hopeless?
Sometimes I feel like, but I'm seeing the youngest generation with a different mind, and so of course not everyone, but I would say that the youngest generation really seems to care more about sustainability and social impact than the other generations, and it seems like the things will start to get better in the future.
Well, I completely agree. And I hope that it starts with more people looking up to people such as yourself and recognizing that they can make a change. I mean, that's the whole point of doing this, is to show people that just regular people with an idea can make an impact if they just choose to do that. I think a lot of people believe that the solutions of the future will just come from someone else. Somebody else is going to develop a cure for cancer. Somebody else is going to develop a cure for AIDS. Somebody else is going to solve pollution, is going to solve carbon, is going to solve sanitation and water. But what we've seen over and over again on this show is that people who just decide to solve these problems often make incredible progress towards actually doing it.
No, yeah, that's true. And I would add that sometimes when we present a solution, they ask why anyone did this before.
We hear that a lot. Yeah. YouTube comments, Instagram comments,
Yeah,
or people will say things like, that's such a simple idea. And you say, well, so, if it's helping 15,000 people, then you do it. Then do
yeah,
it. If it's so easy, then just do it, because we need more people doing this.
yeah,
And
that's
that's
true.
the other thing that what I love about social entrepreneurship versus traditional entrepreneurship. And I've talked about this at length, but the idea of competition. If I want to make a sugary beverage, then I'm competing against Coca-Cola, I'm competing against Pepsi. They're competing against each other. They don't want each other to be in the space. I'm sure Pepsi wants Coca-Cola to just disappear forever. They'd be really, really happy if that happened. But in social entrepreneurship, like you said, if you do it by yourself without any competitors, it'll be very slow. But if there are more competitors, then the end goal is achieved, which is sanitation for all, drinking water for all. So in the end, you would encourage competitors versus discourage them, right?
Yes, and the good thing is we can learn by each other. We can understand that most part of the time the technologies are complementary. They can solve different problems that right now we can't solve. They can seek more investment and make the our growing common a reality.
Because you wouldn't want somebody watching this, maybe even a young Brazilian or whoever might end up watching this. You wouldn't want them to think, oh, she's already doing that, so I should do something else. You would say, no, 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 come on, join me in this fight.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Learn from my mistakes, see what I've been doing wrong and right, and do it for yourself.
So cool. So, if everything goes right, what do you realistically think the next 5 years might hold for you?
I'm sometimes it's hard for me to think about 5 years from now. It's easier from two. Our goal for 2024 is
Sure, say,
to
say two. Let's do two.
to achieve. We want to achieve 1 million people. At that is still it's a small number compared to the potential that we really need to achieve. But for from the perspective that we are right now, it's a really big number. It's almost impossible to achieve. And I would say that we would have more technology. We would have more partners to really have more people working with us and making this dream come true.
That's amazing. As we wrap up our time together, is there any parting piece of advice that you would like to give, or is there anything that you want to promote or tell people to do? Now's the time.
Well, I would ask anyone who can follow us on the Instagram, LinkedIn, um, saying something good, give some idea uh, where we can find more partners, more companies, more awards, any kind of thing that can help us impact more people. Our goal is to impact as many people as possible in a shorter time as possible. So if you can help us any way, we'll be very happy to receive your idea.
So, would you like to have 3 Lamborghinis yourself?
Well, if I had, I would sell to buy more Aqualus and distribute for more families.
I love it. I knew you'd say that. Well, you're a very rare and special person, Anna. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I'm so grateful that you're out there doing your thing. I hope that I'm able to support you in some small way. I look forward to watching what's going to happen with you and with your project. I also, one last question. Brazil versus US, who has a better football team?
Well, if it was the women team, I would say the U.S., but
Okay,
the men's team, Brazil.
we're kind of a joke, aren't we?
No, no,
Yeah, but
the women's team are very
we did
amazing.
okay. The women's team is amazing. Good. We're going to support them then. I agree. They are amazing. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. With that, the official podcast is over.